I decided to make another clip, probably a rather long clip. I do video clips on YouTube, and the reason I do these things is that I believe you have the right to know, and I really do want to inform people about occult matters and the state of the world today. Now, some of you may not care, but I believe some of you do. And some of you may even see the same things that I see occurring on this earth, in this world. My motivation for doing all this is because I do not believe you are being told everything you need to know. And approximately 2 weeks ago, I was planning to do a clip on Jews. I have previously done clips about Jews, and some people just want to scream, yell, rant, anti-Semite, and this is completely wrong. If something is wrong, it needs to be criticised, and the lies have to be exposed. And I've noticed other people attempting to do similar things on YouTube. Myself, I believe it has to go beyond that. And I'm just going to say what I need to say. The thing that has sparked me to do this is because I have seen things from Revelation, and these things are being repeated by Muslims concerning the Dajjal. But as for Judaism, there is no actual end time. There is no revelation. There is no Antichrist. There is no Dajjal. There is a story that has come out, but that only occurred after the Christian and Muslim end time scenarios. And I believe I will tell you the things I have been told by Jews. And it is no longer a case of the Abrahamic religions or faiths having a common denominator, because what today's Jews believe and what the ancients believed are completely different. And this is because they are two completely different people. Now, I've heard by commentators on media and even people just talking in the street that Israel belongs to the Jews because they are descendants of the ancient people. This is not true in the slightest. The modern state of Israel was founded by the Rothschild banking dynasty. They provided the money to transport Jews from Europe to what was known as Palestine but is now Israel. And this is in the same manner that George Soros pays people of various African ancestries and Middle Eastern ancestries to go into Europe. There is a plan to this. So when you look at it, today's Jews speak modern Hebrew, not ancient Hebrew. and they are so different they should be classified as two separate languages. And indeed, for all practical reasons, they are. Most Jews today are atheist, and if they're not atheist, they believe in a type of pantheism. There are anti-Zionist Jews who do believe in the same things as taught by the ancients, but they are such a small minority now. They were once approximately 5% of the world Jewish population. Today it's about 3% and is rapidly declining. There are no genealogy records from the ancient Israelites and ancient Judeans because the genealogy records were destroyed by the Romans when they destroyed the Second Temple. And the main thing that prompted me to do this clip is because I've noticed things that I have done in previous clips of mine, which are available on YouTube, concerning pedophilia, and sociopaths, psychopaths, and atheism. And this is what is coming together today. We're looking at all these angles of attack which are being brought together, and they only serve one group of people and none other. So I want to talk about these things. You know, we can look at our cities, especially in Western countries. The main cities of Western countries are now overrun by refugees and migrants, and they are being facilitated by Jews. And what we are seeing now is a Tower of Babel type situation where no one can talk to each other because everyone speaks a different language. And what people do not understand is that today's Jews see themselves as beyond just a political state. There is a difference between the state of Israel and the state of Israel, and it's not just a matter of pronunciation. This is a global thing in which Jews from all over the world are backing each other up and supporting each other because they believe it is time for their alleged God to take over, and they do not want anyone remotely opposing them. So when we look at the people who call themselves Jews today, we have to ask, where did they come from? They are not Semitic, despite having laws to protect them against anti-Semitism. They are not Semitic. They are not related to Palestinian Arabs, Hashemite Jordanians, Assyrians, or other people who are biologically Semitic. And in fact, anti-Semite laws do not protect those people, but only protect the Jews who are not Semites. So you've got to ask, what is Jewishness? Now, Jewishness can be defined as you wish. If you become a Jew by religion, that is, in converting, you are deemed a Semite, even though you are not Semitic in the slightest. We have various forms of Judaism. We have Reformed Jews who believe that having one Jewish parent instead of just the mother alone classifies you as Jewish. Again, no Semitism involved. We have Reconstructionist Jews who are essentially atheist, but only identify themselves as Jewish by culture. So I could ask you, if I spoke modern Hebrew and had a kosher lifestyle, would that make me a Semite? No. Would it make me a practicing Jew? No. So how is it these people are able to come under this realm? We are not dealing with a specific ethnic group or racial group, because Jews, or those who call themselves Jews, can be of any racial background if they convert in a synagogue, and they can adopt whatever habits they want and yet still be called Jewish. What people do not realize is that in order to be expelled from Judaism, it is not a matter of renouncing God. To be renounced from Judaism is to renounce Judaism itself. God does not mean anything in relation to Jewish religion. So we are dealing with I suppose you would say, a mafia type situation, or indeed a Scientology type situation. If it is good enough for people who call themselves Jews to be classified as Jews, then shouldn't Scientologists be classified in the same way as in regards to race, religion and culture? And indeed, Scientology and Judaism have a lot in common. They are both atheist. As Scientology is considered to be a business cult, if anything, I wonder why isn't the same application put on Judaism or Jewishness? Because there is a similarity between the two. But what I find out is that Jewishness is franchising. Now, Jews like to say they're all descended from the Middle East, from what is now Israel. And yet, we have the situation of Chinese Jews, Indian Jews, Sub-Saharan African Jews. It's a colonization type thing. It's a franchise. There is no way on earth that Chinese are related to the ancient Israelites, but yet they are accepted as such. This is a business deal. That is all. So we have this cult, and I call it a mafia type cult, expanding on a global basis, which, according to a perversion of ancient Jewish beliefs and teachings, is what is meant to be. So we have now the situation of Jews reinventing Revelation. Remember, their revelation was something that came roughly in the 12 and 1300s before it was formalized. So this is a good 500 years after anything that Muhammad might have said. And their end time scenario is a bit more interesting. Their so-called Antichrist or Dajjal is armorless. Now, armorless is in fact a genie, or might say a demon, which was first written about by Apollonius of Tyana. And it was in a book called Nucta Emeron, which has since been rebirthed by a so-called psychic in the 1930s, as I understand. So there is no definite right or wrong, or indeed there's no definite absolutes with Judaism today. And I'll tell you things that Jews supposedly hold. The first thing they hold, and which they refuse to tell you, is that they believe they are gods. They do. They believe that in the Garden of Eden, where Eve took the apple from the tree, which is really the tree of life in Kabbalah terms, and the apple was the Sephira of Geburah. They believe there is two trees, or was two trees in the Garden of Eden. One being the tree of life, and the other being the tree of knowledge of good and evil. They also believe that babies yet to be born, so within a pregnant mother, have no soul. And one thing which they may be right on, and I think they are in this regard, is that the first wife of Adam was not Eve but Lilith. Now, this is an important issue because it shows why these people think they are gods. Now, when I say that Jews are atheists, it's not that they don't believe in the existence of any higher being. Their version of God, are you ready? Their version of God is that all the souls of dead Jews rise up to heaven and they join into a single entity. So dead Jews go to heaven and they all meld together. As for anyone else, it doesn't matter, because we are lesser beings. If you're not a Jew, you are a lesser being. And indeed, I remember it was a audio clip from Bill Cooper, and he said the Jews saw things in that there would only be spiritual Jews and physical Jews. That is, to be a physical Jew, you had to have a Jewish mother. To be a spiritual Jew, you would have to convert. And indeed, I have encountered someone who, for some unknown reason, believes that he is a god and that he follows a higher god, and this guy has gone into like stockbroking and stuff like that, which typical Jewish things. But this guy is not a Jew. He was often talking about his great Christian belief. And one thing that people have to understand, Messianic Jews are not Christian, even though they have Jesus as a role model. It's kind of like having Sid Vicious as a role model for punk music because he was in the Sex Pistols. It's a game. It is a game because they believe they are gods. They are no relation to the ancients whatsoever. And what I will do now, I'll put in some clips, and the next one I'll put in will be from a YouTube user called SEK4110. This concerns a Kabbalist called Doreen Dotan. Now, I've looked at what passes as Kabbalah these days, and believe me, this is something completely alien to anything I ever learned. The Kabbalah I practice and can practice is practical Kabbalah, whereas the Jews, most of whom have no understanding of Kabbalah or its rituals whatsoever, are practicing an atheist type Kabbalah, because by what they believe it can only be atheist. But I will put these clips in and you should watch them and see for yourself.
Well, let's take a listen to Miss Doreen as she reveals the Kabbalistic secret teaching. Again, friends, secrets that are never to be revealed to the non-Jew. Let's take a look at the clip.
We are not aliens, but we are the children of the Most High. You are not. You are our children. You are the children of Elohim. I am sorry to have to tell this to you, but it is the absolute truth, and you're going to have to face this reality. What's called enoshut, which is humanity, is not the same thing as Adam, which is usually translated as man, but is not man. And I'll show you from the sources that Adam is Elohim. That's us. You are the enoshut. So it's not that you're subhuman. It's that we are above human. We are your creators. The thought is going to go through your mind, well, if you think you're our creators and you think that you can destroy us, and my answer to you is, I know that we are your creators. And I also know that being your creators does not mean that we have every right to be your destroyers. It doesn't work that way.
So there you have it. We are human, but they are above human. But it goes deeper, even deeper than this. Would she dare suggest that Jews and non-Jews are not even of the same species? Well, let's find out in the next clip.
And then it goes on to say, nevertheless, you will die like men and fall like one of the ministers. That is to say, even though we are above the level of human, we are still mortal. Most of the levels of reality that you're accustomed to seeing is if something is of a different species, it has a different form. Humans and Adam and prophets all have the same physical form. So you think that they're one and the same species. They are not. Jews and Gentiles are not the same species. We are not the same order of existence. We look alike, and the reason why we look alike is because you're being created in our image, but we are not one and the same.
So according to Kabbalah, they created and continue to create non-Jews. And we are not created in non-Jews are not created in God's image, but rather their image. Hence the term goy friend. And just when you think what she is spewing out of her mouth couldn't get any worse, it does. And not only according to these teachings are we created by them, they believe they are the Elohim and they are our creators. We are created in their image. According to these Babylonian teachings, we do not worship our Father. Christians, non-Jews, and the like do not worship our Father, the Creator of the universe, the God of the Bible. No, we worship planets. Let's take a look at the next clip.
We are Adam, and we are the Elohim. The Gentiles, on the other hand, is what is called Chava. And that is why the Talmud says, you are called Adam, and the worshippers of the planets are not called Adam. That means the Gentiles. And then the Gentile says, well, I don't worship the planets. In fact, you do. And you are very much worshippers of your own minds. You are lost in your thoughts. Your thoughts control you. And that is why we call you idol worshippers. That is why we call you people who worship planets, because you're enthralled by your own brilliance.
So there you have it. According to these chosen ones, and of course I'm mocking here when I say this, Christians don't worship the Father, the Creator of all things. No, we worship planets. And getting back to the lie from the pit of hell that they, the self-appointed Elohim, created non-Jews, how, according to the Babylonian teachings, do they do this? Well, let's get it straight from the horse's mouth in the next clip.
We create you through the medium of our language, of Hebrew. That is how you are created. When we pronounce Hebrew, the forms that go off from those pronunciations create the worlds. You have been taught that King Shlomo, King Solomon, David's son, said that all the world is vanity. This is the way you have been taught it actually goes. No, what King Shlomo said, Hevel. Hevel does not mean vanity. Hevel is the vapor that is emitted from the mouth when we speak.
So, if you want to see more of that sort of stuff, you can go to YouTube and look up SEK4110. It's on her YouTube clips. Just look it up and you'll find them. And as for Dora Dotan, in all honesty, I'm glad she said all those stupid things, but it just proves how far down that Kabbalah has gone down. Now, Kabbalah is a bucket term. You have Kabbalah being divided depending on the way it's spelt. If it starts with the letter C, it's called Christian Kabbalah. If it's spelt with the letter K, it's called Jewish Kabbalah. And if it's spelt with the letter Q, then it's called Hermetistic Kabbalah. But if it comes from the one source, it should all be the same. What Doreen Dotan seems to be saying is more along the lines of sorcery rather than magic. You know, some of the things she said as well, you know, Jews are Adam. She says Jews are Adam and the non-Jews are Hava. Now all Hava means is Eve. And this is an important thing. If we, the non-Jews, are descendants of Eve, then who was Adam's previous wife who gave birth to Jews? And indeed this goes to Lilith. And indeed this condemns them if they accept this, because Lilith is, I suppose you'd say, a genie, though most people would say a demon. It's only a slight difference between the two, as they are more or less put into the same category. But for genie, you know, if you want to look that up, or jinn, you know, Islam has plenty to say about them. So, another thing she's got wrong is Elohim. Elohim is what you'd find on the Tree of Life. So, I'll put it to you this way. You know, God is so great that it is impossible for us to understand or comprehend Him as a whole. So He has aspects which we can relate to. And we find these in the 10 Sephirot of the Tree of Life, which are the 10 personalities pertaining to each Sephirah on the Tree of Life. So we'll use this example. Let's say you're a guy, you're 55, okay? You might be married. The woman, your wife, the woman who married you, would call you honey. You might have a couple of kids. They will call you Dad. Your name might be Robert, but all your friends will call you Robbo. So you're still the one person. It's just people relate to you in different aspects. And this is what the Elohim is really about. I think what concerns me about what Doreen Dotan said was that it appears to be a theology for sorcery. Now, myself, I have done practical Kabbalah, and I was a Satanist. When I was a Satanist, we didn't practice magic, even though we thought we did. We practiced sorcery. And the thing that I find unusual for Doreen Dotan to say is that non-Jews worship planets. And yet, in the Tree of Life, we have planetary hours in which we can perform rituals to a specific sephira, got a choice of 10. So, let's say Hesed, which is the 4th sephira, traditionally aligned with Jupiter. So it would be proper to perform a ritual either on a Thursday or during a Jupiter hour. So I'm trying to figure out how she somehow makes out we're planet worshippers. And as for worshippers of our own minds, I think that's more jealousy. Let's face it, Jews inbreed, and this has resulted in a wave of mental problems, idiosyncrasies, psychosis. If a Jew has a mental problem or has some sort of upset, you would think they would consult with a rabbi, but they don't. They consult with psychologists and psychiatrists who are, for the most part, Jewish. Like I said, I'm glad she said what she said, but I'm trying to figure out why. Is it like she's using YouTube as some sort of online psychiatrist? But nevertheless, let's continue. Now, I want to bring this up because I think it must be mentioned. That being the aspect of pedophilia. Now, what Jews do not want to tell you is that the Talmud says that pedophilia is okay, but it has rules. You can only have sex with a girl up to the age of 3 and a boy up to the age of 9. As for the children of the non-Jews, no restrictions. The Talmud is actually quite a blasphemous, hate-provoking book. It claims that the Lord Jesus Christ is in hell in a boiling pool of shit, excrement. It also says the Virgin Mary was a common slut. And they don't want to tell you this, and I say, well, it's not really a holy book. It's just the opinion of rabbis. But Judaism has had no prophets since the Lord Jesus Christ. This is factual. And in regards to pedophilia, we know what I said about the Talmud is actually true. There's also a religious edict called Mezira, which means Jews will not cooperate with non-Jewish legal entities. So, if you're Jewish and a pedophile, and you molest a Jewish child, then a rabbi's edict will prevent you from going to the police. And this is what you would associate with cults. Indeed, the reason why the likes of the Talmud and pedophilia are allowed free rein in Judaism is because they are more or less engaging in Moloch worship. Moloch worship is a kind of commonality. We have abortionists, and they are all for Moloch worship because they do this by default. So abusing and killing children by default would be Moloch worship. And it's not only just today's Judaism which is practitioner of this. If you've heard of the Urantia book adherents will hold that children do not have souls until they're aged between 5 and 6. And this is something that runs in line with abortion fanatics who believe in post-birth abortion, who hold that children are not conscious of themselves until the ages of 5 or 6. So we can see how this is coming together. And indeed, so some people believe that Satanism is purely theistic. It is not. And in fact, you'll find most Satanists these days are in fact atheists. The Church of Satan is atheist. Though there is a cult I should tell you about, and I heard about this in the mid-90s, approximately 1995. It's called Luciferianism. Now Luciferianism, from what I thought when I first heard about it, is that it is a Satanism which worships Lucifer as a persona. So in Satanism you have the Satan, which is a title which was held by Lucifer, much like Queen is a title held by Elizabeth Windsor. So in regards to the royal family of Britain, you might prefer Prince Harry as your favourite royal, but you have to give respect to the Queen. Now, the Queen is only a temporary title because eventually the Queen will die and then it'll be replaced by someone else. And this is what Satan means. It is a title. Now Luciferianism, from what little I could understand because I had left Satanism by then, seemed a kind of a new age thing. But I was told, if you know any Luciferianists, do not allow them near your children. Just don't do it. And from what I can make out, Luciferianism is actually a pedophile ring, a pedophile cult. The worship of Lucifer is just nominal. There's nothing behind it. There is no dedication. And indeed, when you look at other, what are called Satanist type setups, where you see a combination of Moloch worship and sorcery. Going back to when I left Satanism in 1991, what got me onto the Kabbalah and away from Satanism was that, the Kabbalah. I could see there was a method behind it. I could say what I was doing was sorcery. So I threw it all away, took up Kabbalah. But my purpose for learning Kabbalah was to improve my Satanism. And indeed, I remember from back then, we had all sorts of idiots, morons. Can you do magic for us, bro? And I wonder whatever happened to these people. But as we see now, we've got more child abuse, and if not indeed sacrifices, and indeed pedophilia. It just seems all the bad people, whether they think they're doing Kabbalah or whether they just like having sex with children, are coming together. And it all seems to come under the banner of Jewishness. I'm sure that most of the people in these cults really don't care about Jews or Israel or anything like that. They just care about personal power. It's, you could say it's a grand conspiracy. So I sound like some sort of conspiracy nut, but I can recognise these things because I have been involved in them. If it looks like a conspiracy, it is. So the problem with Judaism these days is that it has not been a continuous line. The people we see call themselves Jews these days are either converts or descendants of converts. They are not descendants of ancient Israel or ancient Judea. It is a reconstitution of all various ancient practices which vaguely come under that region. So you look at today's Jews, and the bulk of them, or we say nearly all of them, are Ashkenazi. Ashkenazis are biologically pretty much the same as Georgians and Chechens. The only difference between them is religion. Georgians are Christians, Chechens are Muslim, and when you look at the Jews, are really Khazars or Khazars who adopted Judaism in order to put themselves in a neutral position to avoid being dragged into wars between Muslims and Christians. So modern Hebrew is not ancient Hebrew because modern Hebrew is a compiled language of various backgrounds. And so too is Judaism. So Jews are either atheists because they believe that by being Jews their God is what they used to be. Or else they are pantheist, that means that God is in everything. when you look at it, it's really Jewish solipsism. But when I look at what happens to the Kabbalah these days, I am seeing what seems to me is something I don't expect from Moloch worshippers. And when you look at it, that's what they are. And indeed, when I was a Satanist, and you'd think about rituals, which demon you would go to, make as part of your ritual to get what you want. We all avoided Moloch. Nobody wanted to deal with Moloch. Moloch is psychotic, unpredictable. There's just no sense or logic behind anything he does. You could pray to Moloch 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. He could still turn around and kill you. That's the type of psychotic behaviour you would get from him. So no one wanted anything to do with him. And when I look at Jews these days, I see the same things. Psychotic. But one thing which you should be aware of in regards to Jewish Kabbalah is that Jews have a strange idea. Right, as non-Jews, we look at it this way: we're on earth, and that we strive in our spirituality to raise up to God. What the Jews do, what they think in regards to Kabbalah, is that Kabbalah is to reach up in heaven, grab God and bring him back to earth. Now, you would have to have some sort of relationship if you're going to be that intimate. But remember, Jews believe that God is the combined souls of dead Jews who previously lived on earth. And indeed, we are seeing the sort of stuff from Revelations. We are seeing this. And indeed, the Orthodox Christian Church teaches that the Antichrist will be a Jew. It just, some people, you think, why would people who were doing this make it so obvious? Why would they take a Christian prophecy and try and enact on it? It's the same thing Satanists did. Take a prophecy, create the conditions in which you can replicate it and then preempt it. This is what we're seeing. I remember I was once told, why did you bother converting to Satanism and doing silly rituals when you could have saved your time and just gone to a synagogue and become a Jew? And sometimes I wonder why. Approximately 3 years ago, I made a clip called Kingdom of Moloch. And in that clip, which is a long clip, but it's available on my YouTube page, I brought up the issue of money and the issue of Bitcoin. Now, Bitcoin is not something you can carry in your wallet. It's not on a credit card. You cannot write a check. It is carried primarily through something like an iPhone. Myself, I don't really have much to do with Bitcoin. Just keep an eye on it now and again. But I said in Kingdom of Moloch that if we were going to get a global currency, it will be Bitcoin and everybody will have an iPhone. And as it seems these days, everybody does have an iPhone, and more people are getting involved in Bitcoin, even though there is nothing to back it up. So the date today is the 26th of May 2018. Approximately 3 weeks ago, the value of Bitcoin slumped. You know, momentarily, but there is no real standard to measure it by, but it went down compared to the American dollar. And approximately 3 weeks ago, Goldman Sachs announced it was going to be a major player in Bitcoin. But this did not get the media attention it deserved. It's just a passing mention by most media services. So, unfortunately, the things I talked about 3 years ago are coming true. And as we see now in our society, we have more and more, pedophilia. There's more clips of mine concerning this. I did a series called Pedophiles, and I estimated to be about 6 terabytes of child pornography available on the internet. Now, as I understand it, it's 10 terabytes and increasing. I'm not doing this to blow my own trumpet. And I'm sure I'm not the only one who's seen these things coming, but they are coming. So, with Judaism today, as it's participated on this earth, in this world, we are seeing Moloch worship. Because all Judaism is just a compiled creed, really much like Satanism that I used to be in. And this is the reason why Jesus Christ was sent. In ancient times, you had the Israelites. They had the teachings of Moses, but they became corrupted and people started worshipping Moloch. And we are seeing the same thing again. It's a repeat. We're dealing with people who believe the world is theirs and who believe they should take it. Some may say, well, Islam has a similar thing. No, Islam believes this earth belongs to Allah, not to them. They do not believe when they die, all their souls get together join on to God, which the faithful on the earth believe they can use sorcery in order to bring this God down to earth. No relation. None at all. And when you look at the duplicity of Jews in relation to common decency, we can look at ISIS in Syria and Iraq. ISIS are against everyone except Jews and in Israel. They never fire a shot at each other, and in one instance there was an exchange of fire. ISIS apologised. And one has to ask, what happened to al-Baghdadi, the leader of ISIS? He just seems to have disappeared somewhere. So, I've said this before. Al-Baghdadi is a Jew called Elliot Shimon, otherwise known as Simon Elliot. And I know a French media company made this exact same allegation. So where's al-Baghdadi? Most probably in Tel Aviv. So we are dealing with a psychotic cult which believes that they are above everyone else. They are a different creature above everyone else. They believe we are just animated sex dolls, so to speak. Our lives don't matter. And indeed, let's look at Donald Trump. His daughter, a Jewish convert, of a Jewish convert mother, married to a physical Jew called Jared Kushner. We look at the Rothschilds, a physical Jewish bloodline. The Rothschilds do not have banks in North Korea and Iran. And yet, Donald Trump, or I should say Jared Kushner, who is the President of the United States, wants war against Iran for certain, and North Korea if they don't open up their banking industry to the Rothschilds. These things are coming true. We have the likes of the protocols of the learned elders of Zion. Everybody will just say it's a fraud, it's fraudulent, but yet the things that were written in the document are coming true. We have people championing Jews as God's chosen people, even though Israel is pretty much an atheist state, and most Jews are indeed atheists because they cannot perceive a higher power than themselves because they believe they are God. And I and many others have repeatedly said this, but as long as there's money for those who will go along with this fantasy that the Jews have, they don't care. As Hassan of Alamut said, nothing is true, all is permitted. and this earth is on the tree of death. Ask a Jew, the Kabbalah experts about the tree of death, they say it doesn't exist. I mean, we are really at the end time, I suppose. It's not to say it can't be turned around. But if people are going to prostitute themselves for money that does not exist in physical form such as Bitcoin, then their lives will be as equally as worthless. There may be some of you who believe that the purpose of this clip is just to hate on Jews. That is wrong. When we look at the current situation and the percentage of the world's population that Jews are, it would not be possible for them to do this solely by themselves. There are people assisting the Jewishness that they are peddling for what can only be described really as fantasy money, because people help the Jews because they perceive some sort of financial benefit, even though the money concerned does not exist, it never has existed and never will exist. When I look at it, we have the likes of Christian Zionists who will happily help the Jews because they believe it's what their so-called God wants them to do and what Jesus wants them to do. The person they call Jesus and what everyone else calls Jesus are two different things. It spins off into a new age thing where you have the likes of the cosmic Christ and indeed the Maitreya, who are being lauded as Jesus Christ as from ancient times, and this is not true. The Urantia book talks about a Michael of Nebadon as being Jesus Christ, who we mistakenly believe to be Jesus Christ. This is simply not true. So we are dealing with a perversion which comes from a philosophical type background but manifests itself in religious belief. That's how it is enacted, and through that we are seeing political results from it. But back to Doreen Dotan and SEK 4110. The problem is Doreen Dotan is relying on the Zohar, which is a purely philosophical type book text, and in some regards bears a resemblance to the Talmud. The same Talmud that says Jesus Christ is in hell in a boiling pool of excrement says the Virgin Mary was a common slut, and says it's alright to have sex with your children up to certain ages, but everyone else's children there's no protection. Do what you want. And it upsets me that people think this is what Kabbalah is all about, and it's not. In what people call Kabbalah and what it actually is, in the likes of Doreen Dotan, she's really trying to enact a philosophy or an opinion of various people. Myself, I did practical Kabbalah, which does use the Bible, which does use the Tree of Life, and does use the Shem HaMephorash. And I cannot really see any relation between what Dotan practices and believes and what I have done. And you could put it down to some crazy old lady, but I believe she is probably one of the better learned Jews relating to Kabbalah. As most Jews are atheists, they have no reason to believe or accept any of this, but it's a role-play game to them, much like Goths role-play Satanism, which now is atheistic. It's relied on stereotypes from fictional books, TV shows and movies. It does not bear any resemblance to reality whatsoever. And when you look at it, Moloch preferred blood sacrifices from children. Children were to be sacrificed to him. And one of the allegations made against Jews in the 12 and 1300s was that they killed goy, that being non-Jewish children, as a sacrifice. So there definitely is an element of Moloch worship in today's Judaism. And we are not even mentioning the likes of the Sabbateans, who believe in redemption through sin. Basically, don't be good, do the worst you can, and this is how you reconcile with God. And you have to ask, who is their God? But I'm not saying these things just to hate on Jews, because there are people of different religions and different races who are, quite frankly, conspiring with the worst elements of Judaism or Jewishness to get these things done. For what? Money? Power? It's really sociopaths and psychopaths aligning with Moloch worshippers. That's what we have. Do I believe all Jews are bad? No. Do I believe they've been indoctrinated to go along with this? Yes. Do I believe they are held in some sort of hostage situation? Yes. Because if you renounce Judaism, you lose everything. Your family will disown you, your friends will disown you, whatever financial resources you have will disappear, because more than likely they have been put into the hands of Jewish investors. Can all Jews be saved? No, I don't think so. But then again, can all Muslims be saved? Or all Christians? Or anyone? Can all people be saved? The potential is always there to save them. But if they are only adhering to a religious belief through just out of some form of identity politics, then no, because they are essentially practicing atheists. And this is the problem. But as time goes on, as circumstances repeatedly change, then the amount of people who can be saved goes less and less and less. So when you look at Revelation, was it 144,000 will be saved? The way things are going, that seems quite reasonable. I know that some of you will be saying, well, you're probably a Nazi anyway. No, it's not true. In fact, when you look at what Hitler did, he had the Michelin laws, which allowed people of Jewish ancestry to a certain degree to participate in the government as civil service of the Third Reich. And indeed, he did have, I suppose you could say, Jewish or Judaist soldiers in his SS, but they were called Mosaic because he saw a difference between those who practice modern Jewry and those who participated in the laws and teachings of Moses. So you can't say he was determined to wipe out anything Semitic, which Jews are not. So what we have now is a situation where nothing is true nor is permitted. We are seeing history being rewritten. We are seeing educational facilities churning out children dumber than what they went in. So is it a purely Jewish thing? No. Is it Moloch worship? Well, considering the psychoticness of those that it infects, yeah. And considering Moloch is psychotic, yes. We have this warped philosophical type approach to all existence now. And indeed, pedophiles, rape and murder children. How does that satisfy any sexual urge? It doesn't. It's a philosophy, solipsist philosophy. It's a curiosity. Well, a pedophile may say, I want to rape a child in order to hear it scream, and I want to kill it in order to see it like when it's dead. That's the sort of philosophy we have and we are up against. It is not just a localized problem. We are being attacked on multiple fronts. This is what people have to realize, so we will have to fight on multiple fronts. So, for the time being, I wish to end this clip here, but I will give you some names and some YouTube clips for you to check out for yourself. This is your homework. and I'm going to put this clip on YouTube, and I'm going to put it on CDs in an AVI format, and probably some other clips with them. But you should check the clips I'm going to be placing this with, because there is a base to all what occurs now. And indeed, this is a war. This is the end time. And if you believe in God, then you are going to have to fight to defend His honour and the honour of those who believe the same way you do.